There's a question about what are the hidden costs when considering a move abroad. And I've lived outside the United States for 12 years. And I would say the one area where you never know how much it's really going to cost you, it really just comes down to taxes. As an American citizen, you will always have to pay US taxes. You will always have to file a tax return in the US. I think there's a misconception that, just because you move abroad, you could be subject to a lower tax rate. And in some cases, yes, that's true. But it's not the same as non-American citizens. So as an example, so I lived in the Netherlands. I was being taxed when I lived there at 52%. So because my US tax obligation is ultimately the one that wins out, but I had to pay the 52% taxes on the ground in Netherlands, I basically overpaid taxes every single year for the 6 years that I lived there. And you do get to use that against your US tax return. And it says, okay, you overpaid your taxes globally, so you don't get a refund, but instead they hold that money in sort of a credit note to you that you can use for the following year. So you do get to use it. So it doesn't just go away, but you don't get it as a refund, even if you overpay. Now, in my situation, it helped me because the opposite could happen. You could move to a country where the tax rate is lower. Singapore is an example. The tax rate's only 10%. So I was paying 10% taxes in Singapore, and the difference I was paying in the United States. Again, even though I didn't live there. So I took that credit from the Netherlands that I had from overpaying for the first 5 years living abroad and applied it to my taxes when I lived in Singapore, where I was underpaying my total global compensation. And the same will go for Italy. So Italy, I'm in a flat 7% tax town, which that's fantastic, right? Because that's how Italy is trying to attract people to these smaller towns to get them to repopulate. But I'm a US citizen. Ultimately, I'm still going to pay the 20-30% that I would normally pay for the US. I'm still going to have to pay that. So the 7% doesn't really apply to me. Like, I'll pay 7% on any income here in Italy. I will still have to pay the balance to what my normal regular tax obligation is in the United States. If you're considering a move abroad, the biggest question mark is going to be, how is that going to affect your taxes, depending on what country you're a citizen of. So my best advice is, before you make the move abroad, work with a tax advisor if you can, and just model out, okay, if I think I'm going to earn this, what are my tax obligations going to look like next year? Because it can be quite surprising how much you're still going to have to owe to the United States government by living abroad.